non-glamour production because it is a Tuesday, and on Tuesdays I do not have to go into the office. So I am completely and totally pared down to my lowest common denominator, which is fine. I just enjoy mentioning it. But I am the Yelosha Television. Here I give Black women and femmes the tools that they need to break the patterns of mammying and muling and begin the process of using their power to fulfill their own destinies. So that is what this channel does. That is who this channel is for. And today I'm going to do what I do very often and speak on behalf of Black mothers, because as much as I see Black women coming together, as much as I see Black women rising up, I just don't feel like I see enough lauding and magnification of Black mothers. So, I'm going to do it myself because the rocks are not going to cry out on my behalf. Now, I'm going to say before I get started, because I'm going to be talking about Black mothers, the trolls are going to be super mad. The purpose of trolls is to keep Black women down because they know that we are powerful. I don't know how many other Black YouTubers you follow, but if you follow any other Black women YouTubers, you will find that they have so many more trolls than people of any other kind, because these beings are dispatched for the purpose of distracting Black women, for getting us off of our game, because they are afraid of our power. But here we go. The grace that you will not give your own Black mother, you will also not give to yourself. I am in lots of face-to-face spaces and lots of online spaces where people are interrogating the philosophies that we had come at one time to think of as just natural or instinctual or understood. So I'm in a lot of things are being interrogated. The roles of mother, the gender realities are being interrogated. Sexual realities are being interrogated. I'm in all of those spaces. The academic world is one of those spaces. The some levels of African spiritual tradition is one of those spaces, and then of course online. I curate my online this type of information as well. But many times you will find that people who are willing to interrogate certain things do not extend that level of interrogation to the way that they feel about their Black mothers. And what I mean by that is you will find people speaking out against capitalism and explaining how capitalism as a system holds us all hostage and therefore forces us within our lives to work in ways that we don't want to not show up for our loved ones in the ways that we would like to not make time for ourselves and not make time for the things that are important. You'll have people speaking like that about capitalism. And then they will turn around when it is time to talk about Black mothers and they'll say, well, my mother was never home. My mother was always at work. And so, still, as an adult who has taken the time to interrogate capitalism, I still believe that my mother was just choosing to always be at work. I haven't given her the grace to understand that she too was being held hostage by capitalism. I am in spaces where people are interrogating gender roles and where they're saying the ways that our mothers and our grandmothers were expected to act came from a patriarchal oppression. And this regime was pressing our mothers and our grandmothers down and not giving them the freedom and the space to spread out and be their full selves. I will hear that, And then in the same breath, a person will talk about how their mother policed their actions, how their grandmother policed their actions, how these people were vigilantly making sure that their actions stayed within certain very strict boundaries. So again, they haven't given their mothers or grandmothers grace as being oppressed and held hostage by these same systems that they're taking the time to very intellectually interrogate. And the news, the big news, when it comes to not giving grace to your black mama, is that if you cannot fully give grace to your black mama, you are not giving grace to yourself. Because at the end of the day, you realize that you are an extension of your mother. Your body, your features, the expectations that are placed on you, how the world chooses to interact with you is an extension of how they interact with your mother. Yeah. So if you're not giving your mother grace, if you are constantly finding ways to not give your mother grace, then you're not fully giving yourself grace. The ways in which you haven't been able to look at your mother's actions and see how they were forced upon her, or see how she was just a cog in the wheel of oppression, I promise you that you're going to turn around and realize that you're still doing the same thing to yourself. Because the truth of the matter is, if you agree with the way that people policed your mother, if you agree with the way that people policed her choices, the way that people created unfair restrictions on her choices, if you agree with that, if you feel like, oh, my mother should have stayed within these forced up on us gender roles, these constructed by white supremacy gender roles, my mother should have stayed within those roles, then in some way you are thinking that about yourself as well. You are the blueprint of your mother. Your mother is your blueprint. In the ways that people treat your mother, that's the way that people are going to treat you. There's no way around it. So if you are looking at her and saying she should have done X, Y, and Z, and she didn't, then you're also not able to look at yourself and forgive yourself for not being able to, in the context of white masculinist imperialism, do X, Y, and Z. And every time I pay attention to people's words and then I pay attention to their actions. So when I speak to people who don't have any grace for their mother, I pay attention to their actions. I don't judge anyone for the choices that they make in their lives, because I know that life is long. And so you may make a particular choice and you may see things a particular way, and life will show you. Life will show you what is true and what is real. So oftentimes I come into contact with people who are unable to give grace to their mothers, who are unable to understand the reasons for their mother's choices, who are unable to look at their mothers within the context of global white masculinist imperialism. They can look at everything else within that context and see how it's working, but they cannot do that for their mothers. So oftentimes I'll work with people like that. And as they continue to say, no, my mother just hated me. No, my mother was just a bad person. No, my mother was she just purposely chose to be terrible to me. Again, I'm going to say, I always have to give this disclaimer. Obviously, I am not talking about cases of actual abuse. Obviously, I am not talking about cases where someone's parent was choosing to be harmful to them. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about me having to come home at 8 years old and have a key tied around my neck and let myself and my little sister in and go into the toaster oven and get the snack out that my mother had left for us, and close every window and every blind and every shade so that no one would know that we were there alone, and sit there home alone, scared in the racist white neighborhood that we lived in until my mother got home. I'm talking about the fact that we're even younger than that. Because my mother was a single mother, no one would help her with my baby sister and I. We were her last two children. And so my grandmother had already been put in a nursing home, but there was no one in my hometown that would help my mother to watch us after school until she got off from work. So we had to sit in the abandoned house of my grandmother. We had to sit in a house where nobody lived, in a house that was about to be condemned, because my mother at least knew that the people in the neighborhood that she grew up with in wouldn't allow something terrible to happen to us, even if those same people were not going to help her to keep us. So I could be judging my mother for that. I have seen so many critiques that say, well, if she knew she was going to have to put me in an abandoned house, she shouldn't have had me. Like none of us have gotten pregnant or had pregnancy scares with people that we knew we shouldn't have gotten pregnant by. Like none of us have been in a position where something like that either happened to us or almost happened to us. I've seen people say that. So instead of asking, why isn't anybody helping this woman with these kids? They are saying the blame is on my mother for giving birth to me. Do you see what I'm saying? So when you fall into the life of people like that, I say keep watching them, because the same grace that they can't give their mother, the same way that they cannot see that there were ways in which a mother was a victim of the circumstances around her and the systems around her, eventually you're going to realize that they cannot see it for themselves either. They cannot give themselves the same grace that they cannot give their mothers. It always comes back around to that. Regardless of your gender, regardless of whether or not you favor your mother, whether or not y'all actually look alike. Hold on one second, guys. Had to text my child right quick. Regardless of whether or not you actually favor your mother, whether or not when you look in the mirror, you can see her looking back at you like some of us can. Regardless of that, your psyche and yourself understands you to be an extension of her. So all of the ways in which you are insulting her, all of the ways in which you are bad mouthing her, all of the ways in which you are not giving her the benefit of the doubt, you are not doing that for yourself either. I can automatically guarantee you that you are not doing it for yourself either. And you may disagree, and you may say, "Oh, I'm a guy, and I hate my mother because she kept my father away from me, and she was a terrible woman, and she was promiscuous, and she had children out of wedlock, and she my stepfather was a simp," and all this kind of crazy stuff that people say when they are male or when they are masculine. You may be saying that, and I'm saying to you today, unequivocally, you too. I'm not just talking to black women, I'm talking to black men too. The ways in which you will not give your mother grace, if you cannot give your black mother grace, you are not giving your black self grace either. If you look at a black woman and believe that she is not supposed to ask for more, if you look at a black woman and believe that she is not deserving of the best, then you don't believe your black self is deserving of the best either. And you can disagree with me, but life is going to prove me correct, because I've seen it happen over and over and over again. If you believe that black women who have children by several different people, or black women who have children with somebody and then divorce that person or break up with that person and go and marry somebody else, should not be allowed to remarry, there is a way in which you are judging your own sexual choices. There is a way in which you are judging your own relationship decisions. The same grace that you don't give to your black mother. Hey, baby. Hi, mommy. I'm making a video. I'll be done in a second. Okay. You will not give to yourself. So I caution you to be careful. And I also caution you to pay attention to the patterns that you are putting out into the universe when it comes to your body, when it comes to your psyche, when it comes to your mind? What are you telling the universe about your body and psyche and mind with the words that you're saying? What are you saying to the universe? When you say Black women don't deserve to be treated like this, Black women don't deserve to be stay-at-home mothers, Black women don't deserve to be wined and dined and treated like queens, Black women don't deserve a second chance after a marriage hasn't worked out or after a relationship hasn't worked out. As you're saying those things, look and see if you think that you deserve it, because you don't. You can look and see, but I'm letting you know that you don't. When you say that about your mother, you are automatically saying it about yourself. And I don't care if you weren't raised by her. I don't care if you're not close to her. If you believe that about your mother, you're believing it about yourself. I could draw many conclusions, many negative conclusions about being left in an abandoned house as an elementary school child. And there were times before I was somebody's mother that I did wonder about that. And that action did seem to be strange. As a matter of fact, when I was in the middle of doing it, it seemed a strange action. And I was like, why is she doing this? Why can't we go here? Why can't we go there? Why can't so and so watch us? And it wasn't until I became an adult that she explained to me why so and so couldn't watch us, and why she didn't drop me off over so and so's house, and why we didn't stay over there. She explained all of that to me. And I'm going to say, I'm going to take the time to make this point, because this is the other side of that people don't want to speak on. Who was picking me up from school, example, who was supposed to be parenting me. Take a minute. Take that in. And I hear people saying this all the time. I hear people relaying these same kinds of stories all the time and putting all of the blame on their mother. I think I've talked to you guys before about the online conversation I had where the person was saying, no, I never believed in Santa Claus because me and my mother were running out of our house one Christmas because my dad was chasing us and we had to hide in the car. And my mother was crying. And I said, maybe Santa Claus will bring you some happiness for Christmas. And my mother screamed and said, there is no Santa Claus. So this person spent the whole rest of that thread talking about what a terrible person her mother was. And I said, how kind of her to save you from your father who was chasing you and about to do both of y'all harm. And nobody had thought about that. So this is literally what I am discussing. If you are not giving your mother grace, let me rephrase it. Let me make it plain. I like for stuff to be plain. I like to call a spade a spade. I like to call a thing a thing. I think that so much is lost when you don't call a thing, when you dance around it, when you cover it in pretty euphemisms and things of that nature. So let me rephrase that. Give me a second. If, when you do not give your Black mother grace, then you do not give your own Black self grace. In all of those instances, when you don't take the time to see how her circumstances caused her to do things, then you will not take the time to see that for yourself either. I don't know if you guys have seen my video where I'm saying you are not lazy. You are just poorly supported. You don't have the support that is required for you to do the things that people expect you to do. Nobody is supporting you. Nobody is helping you. You are not lazy. I created that video and I was able to come to that conclusion after sitting around thinking about some of the shit my mother had to do as though she were 2 or 3 or 4 people. I was able to come to that conclusion because I took the time to give my mother grace. I sat up and thought about being left in an abandoned house. And instead of saying, if she knew she didn't have money for childcare, she shouldn't have had me, I said, well, after I was already here, why wasn't anybody helping this woman with childcare? This wonderful woman, this Sunday school teacher, this outstanding citizen, this award winning person on her job and in her church. Why wasn't somebody stepping up and volunteering to assist her with childcare? I was able to then look at the situation and ask myself that question. And once I had asked myself that question, I said, well, how many ways is that happening to me? And then when I was able to think about the 12,000 different ways in which that was happening to me, I was able to realize that I'm not lazy. And that took years. That was decades long of discovery. It took me years to realize that I was not lazy. Years. And y'all all know I am a full-time PhD student. I have 6 children and a grandchild. I run my own business and I teach literature. And I sit up every day feeling like I'm lazy. So, in order to cure myself of that, I had to show grace to my Black mama. I could not fathom showing grace to my Black self till I took the time to show grace to my Black mama. And that is true no matter what your gender is. That is true no matter who raised you. That is true no matter the circumstances of the relationship that you have with your mother. Your psyche and your body recognize her as source. And as source, you recognize yourself as an extension of that. So, all of the ways in which you judge her, I guarantee you, you are judging yourself. So, I would advise from a spiritual perspective, I would advise from an emotional perspective, I would advise from just a human and humane perspective that you go about the work of giving your mother grace. Y'all know I don't believe in forgiveness. I do not believe in forgiveness. Forgiveness is a tool of oppression, and it was created to keep people who are considered less than human in a less than human status. But y'all have heard me say time and time again, there are 2 people in my life that I am going to forgive because I actually feel led to forgive them, and that is my mother and my children. Those people will be forgiven. Nobody else in my life am I forgiving. So if you've ever done anything that was wrong to me, I ain't forgave you. That don't mean when I see you I'm gonna act a fool, but it does mean that I'm holding it in the back of my mind and I'm using it as my tool to know who and what you are. I don't believe in forgiveness, but I do believe in forgiving my mother. I do believe in giving grace to my mother. I was raised by the person who stayed. I was raised by the person who 90% of their income was used to take care of me. I was raised by the person who made sure that every house they moved into not only had a room for me, but had space for me. I was raised by the person who made sure that I was well nourished. I was made by the person who made sure that I was always in an environment that I could be learning in and that I could be growing in. That's who I was raised by. That is who I was raised by. And many times, matter of fact, most of the time, people are looking at their mother and judging her based on an outside interpretation of Black single mothers. They're not taking the time to look at the actual sacrifices their mother made for them. They're not taking the time to look at the actual situation that their mother found herself in and why she found herself in that situation. They're not taking the time to do that. But I'm going to go back to my original premise. When you don't take the time to do that, you are not giving grace to yourself. When you don't take the time to go back and explore the situation and see how certain things came to be, you are only going to turn that hatred or that disgust or that anger back on yourself. give grace to your Black mother. I'm not saying for you guys to forgive your mother. That's what I choose to do. But I cannot speak for what's best for anybody outside of me, because it's only my situation that I know and that I have lived in. So I'm not saying for you to forgive your mother. Some of you may not, and that's fine. That's your business, that's your destiny. But what I am saying is give grace to your Black mother so that you can give grace to your Black self. Until you are giving her grace, you are not giving yourself grace. And it's going to pop up. You're going to see it pop up. You're going to feel it and experience it in the ways that you talk to yourself. You're going to feel it and experience it in the ways that you treat yourself. You're going to feel it and experience it in the expectations that you have of yourself. Give your Black mother grace. That is part of a that is a tool to tap into your magical power. All right, along these lines, tomorrow night I am teaching a course called Sweeten Your Inner Voice. In working with Black women and femmes, I find so many times that we speak so ugly to ourselves. We speak so harmful to ourselves. We spend so much time and expend so much energy trying to make ourselves feel bad for every mistake, for every misstep, for every obstacle and blockage that we're facing. Most of the time, how you speak to yourself is what is creating your reality. I would like to say all of the time, but ain't nothing all of the time, right? We always got to make room for Eshu, who is the extraneous variable. So I'm teaching a class tomorrow night on how to speak more sweetly to yourself. I will put a link in the description box for those who are interested in taking the class. Ecstasy, abundance, and bliss to all of those within the sound of my voice who are wishing the same for me and mine. And as always, I wish the lessons of life on those who are ignorant enough to wish us otherwise. Everybody enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your evening. I will see some of you guys tomorrow, and everyone else, I will see you in my next video. Peace, y'all.